A man accidentally witnessed a car crash. Nothing special at first glance, but to him, it looked like a huge opportunity. Every time an accident happened, a swarm of reporters would show up like wild animals, fighting to capture every detail. Their cameras were so close, they were practically in the victims' faces. The chaos and intensity of it all caught Lewis's attention. After they were done filming, Lewis approached one of the cameramen, curious about what they were doing. That's when he learned the truth. These people sold their footage to news stations and got paid for it. The man didn't say how much they made, but judging by the expensive equipment in their van, it was clearly a profitable business. Lewis asked to join them, but was immediately turned down. Still, he wasn't discouraged. Just as he was trying to convince the man, another emergency report came through the radio. The crew rushed to their van and sped off. Lewis wasn't disappointed. In fact, he was fired up. At the time, he was just a petty thief, barely surviving by stealing scrap metal. The scrapyard owner constantly underpaid him, and this time, he was only offered $20 for his haul. Furious, Lewis walked away without looking back. But what else could he do? Then he remembered the accident, and the new path it revealed. The next morning, Lewis sat in front of his TV. Sure enough, the crash scene from last night was all over the news. That confirmed his decision. He would become one of them. He acted fast. First, he stole a professional race car parked by the roadside. Then he went to a store and traded the car for a high-end video camera and a police scanner. His journey had officially begun. Not long after, he heard police chatter through the scanner. He couldn't make sense of the codes, but when he heard there was a brawl, he rushed over. Unfortunately, he was too slow or too early each time. He kept missing the real action. At the third location, though, he finally bumped into a fellow Nightcrawler. Seeing the man's gear, Lewis realized he needed to step up his game. He pushed forward and managed to film a few wide shots. Although the police kicked him out, he walked away with some valuable footage. He followed the veteran reporter to the news station and listened as he sold the footage. Taking notes, Lewis tried the same approach at Channel 6. He boldly asked for $1,000 for his clip. The producer, Della, didn't give him that much, but the offer was still more than he expected. It was his first real paycheck in the business. But instead of celebrating, he asked Della how to make even more. She told him bluntly, scenes of serious incidents and emotionally charged moments were what grabbed viewers' attention. That's what sells. Lewis understood exactly what she meant. He didn't jump into action right away. Instead, he stayed home, built a system to catalog his footage, tracked what sold best, and studied police radio codes. Once he felt ready, he hired an assistant named Rick, a fresh college graduate, for $30 a night to help him navigate the city. Unfortunately, their first job together was a disaster. Rick got nervous and gave the wrong directions. By the time they arrived, the scene was cleared. Meanwhile, the other crews had already finished filming and were celebrating their win. Lewis was furious and scolded Rick on the spot. He hurried to another scene, but again, he was late. The police had already cordoned it off. Still, Lewis wasn't one to give up. He found a side entrance and slipped inside unnoticed. He captured detailed shots and even placed a family photo next to a bullet hole, enhancing the emotional impact. He also caught a conversation between the victim's family and the police. Della was impressed. She paid him even more this time, which strengthened Lewis's belief in his future. From then on, he worked non-stop. Every time something happened, no matter how big or small, he was there. His footage took over the morning news at Channel 6, and the money poured in. He bought a new car, upgraded his gear, and improved his filming techniques. One day, he arrived at the scene of a car fire before anyone else. But the body's position didn't allow for a good shot. So, a dangerous idea struck him. He dragged the driver's body into the car's headlights, ran to a higher slope, and captured a dramatic close-up. By the time the police and others arrived, Lewis had already finished filming. He calmly packed up and walked away as other crews stood helplessly behind the barricades. That exclusive footage sold for $2,000. Lewis's success caught the attention of a veteran in the field, who offered to team up. But Lewis turned him down flat. He wanted full control, even if it meant less money. The man was furious and warned him he'd regret it. That night, Lewis and Rick responded to a plane crash alert. But when they arrived, they were blocked by police. Meanwhile, the veteran walked out from inside, bragging about the amazing footage he had just gotten. He also warned Lewis that he would use his industry connections to make sure Lewis never filmed again. Suddenly, Lewis found himself missing out on major stories. With fewer breaking scenes to shoot, Della scolded him for bringing in only minor stories. Frustrated and humiliated, Lewis locked himself in the bathroom. It was his first real failure, and it hit hard. He realized he couldn't beat the veteran head-on. So, he decided to take him out of the picture. The next morning, Lewis quietly snuck into the man's garage and cut the brakes on his car. That night, a car accident was reported. The victim was the veteran himself. He looked at Lewis with wide, confused eyes. Lewis simply raised his camera and hit record, his cold stare as empty as the night. From that point on, Lewis's methods became more extreme. He started staging stories instead of just capturing them. One night, a home robbery alert came through. He and Rick rushed to the scene. Before the police arrived, Lewis slipped into the mansion with his camera while Rick kept watch outside. Inside, Lewis heard gunshots. He paused, then calmly began filming. The robbers were still inside. Knowing the risks, Lewis hid and waited. The video he captured was shocking. Though they knew it could be legally risky, they decided to blur the victim's face and broadcast it. Lewis priced the footage at $100,000. When Della countered with $3,000, he walked out, threatening to sell it to a rival station. Della hesitated. That's when Lewis made his real offer. He'd sell it for $10,000, even throw in a few freebies. But on one condition, Della had to give him credit and introduce him to her network executives. He wanted connections. Della agreed. Lewis got paid, and Della got a front row seat to the news broadcast frenzy. Everyone at the station worked overtime to edit and headline the story. The piece went viral. Lewis's fame skyrocketed. But so did the attention of the police. They questioned him about the case. Lewis stayed calm, claiming he saw the robbers by chance and couldn't make out their faces. When asked if he caught them on camera, he flatly denied it. Lacking evidence, the police had no choice but to let him go. After the robbery footage, Lewis didn't stop. He rewound the tape and noticed the license plate on the robber's car. From there, he tracked down their home address. A few days later, he began staking out the area, waiting for the perfect moment. Once he saw the suspects leaving their house and heading downtown, Lewis made a call to the police, an anonymous tip reporting their whereabouts. Why? Because this time, he wasn't just after another video. He was aiming for the $50,000 reward, and a shocking, exclusive story to go with it. When Rick found out about the plan, he froze. What Lewis was doing now clearly crossed into criminal territory. Later that night, the two robbers left their house and stopped at a restaurant. Lewis and Rick followed closely behind. As the robbers sat down to eat, Lewis quietly called the police. Rick was nervous. There were 6 innocent people dining inside. If a shootout broke out, things could get out of hand quickly. But Lewis didn't care. In fact, he told Rick to go inside and find the best angle for filming. He would stay outside, capturing footage from the car. Reluctantly, Rick obeyed. The police arrived minutes later. They blended in, pretending to place orders at the counter while discreetly confirming the suspects' identities. But the two men sensed something was wrong. Growing uneasy, they reached for their weapons. 2 more officers entered. Chaos erupted. One of the robbers was shot on the spot. The other grabbed a nearby driver, jumped into his car, and took off. The police gave chase, and so did Lewis, with Rick in the passenger seat. A high-speed pursuit began. The fugitive swerved wildly, trying to ram the police vehicles out of his way. But he lost control. Both his car and a police cruiser went flying off the road. Lewis reacted fast. With a sharp drift, he stopped the car in a perfect position and jumped out with his camera. He ran straight toward the wreck, shouting that the suspect was down and urging Rick to come film the scene. Rick jumped out and rushed to the crash. But Lewis stayed behind. Why? Because the suspect wasn't dead yet. As Rick moved closer with the camera, the robber suddenly pulled a gun. Kicking the car door open, the man tried to flee. But before he got far, more officers arrived and took him down. Through it all, Lewis stood at a distance, calmly filming. Then, he slowly turned the lens toward Rick, his only partner, the man who dared to ask for half the reward, and captured him on camera, too. It was no accident. Lewis had led Rick straight into danger. And now, Rick was part of the footage. Once he had the shots he needed, Lewis rushed back to Channel 6. Della was blown away by the footage. She praised him like never before, her eyes glowing with admiration. Just as the two were about to celebrate, police officers suddenly showed up at the station, demanding all of Lewis's recordings. But Della refused. Unless they had a court order, the footage wasn't going anywhere. She gave them 4 minutes before the broadcast would go live. The officers had no choice, they left empty-handed. Meanwhile, Lewis was being questioned again by the police. Still, he kept his composure, calmly spinning a story. He claimed he was out getting food when he happened to see 2 familiar faces and decided to film. He couldn't remember their features, he said, it was dark. The police suspected he was lying. But with no real evidence, they had to let him go. Not only that, they handed him the $50,000 reward. Once again, Lewis walked away without paying any price. With his new earnings, he expanded his team even further. Everyone got professional gear and matching uniforms. Now, Lewis led his crew through the city streets every night, hunting for the next exclusive. From a petty thief to a media manipulator standing on the edge of crime.